Alright, so before I get into the video, I gotta lay out some of the groundwork we'll be working on here. So when it comes to Lu Bu, I'm gonna only be discussing what we've seen from him in the Record of Ragnarok manga, right? And I want to make that clear because I know there's the Lu Bu spin-off manga, but just to keep things more streamlined here for the sake of this discussion, I'm gonna be only referencing here to what we saw in round 1. Also, like usual, I'm gonna start by comparing just their base forms before I get into Lu Bu Sky Eater with red hair or Hades using Desmos. It's just more practical to interpret how their fight would have actually played out if we ever saw it go down in the manga. Of course, I'll touch on Sky Eater, red hair, and Desmos when I have to, but I think it works better this way to keep things more linear. Like always, I'm sure there's good arguments on both sides, especially given how good of a matchup Hades versus Lu Bu is, so feel free to comment down below after the video whatever it is you think, whether you agree or disagree. I'm glad to see whatever it is the community here thinks. But with that out of the way, let's just get into the video, guys. There is a lot to talk about here. Alright, so before I get into who I think wins, it's very important that I build the case for Hades first now, because it's crucial to my argument that you understand just what makes Hades so competitive, or else you may or may not disagree for the wrong reasons here. And to keep things simple, I'll break it down into 3 areas of ability: his speed, his durability, and his power. So when it comes to Hades' speed, I realize he doesn't capitalize on it like Poseidon or Zeus did, but similar to Thor versus Lu Bu, it's not like Chin had pushed Hades to focus his attacks entirely on speed, especially when you consider the sheer power from his attacks. And like I just said, I'll touch on his overall power when I get to that part of the discussion here, but given how much of a threat his own power turned out to be by the end of round 7, I wouldn't even make the argument that Hades needed Poseidon or Zeus-like speed to win the fight. I think round 7 is the most competitive fight we've seen in the entire story so far, for the fact that everything was so methodical on both sides. I mean, Chin couldn't even walk himself out of the arena by the time he finally won, so again, I think Hades fought just the way he needed to. He did everything right until it just so happened that Chin proved to be the more technical fighter, but that doesn't mean Hades didn't show any speed feats, and there's 2 in particular that I really want to get into because we're seeing it done in 2 different ways. So the first example of his speed is going back to chapter 58, and I gotta be honest, when it comes to round 7, chapter 58 is my favorite chapter from the fight. You'll notice me coming back to this chapter a lot throughout the video, but it's because it shows us such a technical matchup from both Hades and Chin. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm going off topic here. It's just really important to me that whether you end up agreeing with me or not, I'd have at least made myself clear, because it's so easy to misunderstand Hades' abilities, I think. So the chapter starts with Hades rushing at Chin here, and we're seeing him produce these after images of his Biden in one of these panels. Now, after images is really hard to measure in terms of taking them realistically, right? Because sometimes it's just done as a visual effect, sometimes it's to illustrate speed, but then we're coming to another panel of Chin hard focusing on his Biden coming from any and every direction as he's waiting for his moment to use the crossbow form. And the fact that Chin is able to dodge is extremely important here, because if you go to chapter 60, this was when Brunhild had given us this absolutely important and vital information that I'm gonna need you guys to remember for the rest of the video. It's when she's talking about Chin's Volund. She says, Alvatyr, the Valkyrie who specializes in defense and can maximize the potential of Chin's martial arts. Alright, so this is where it gets a little tricky, because from my understanding, it seems like Alvatyr was buffing Chin's general defenses and agility since the start of round 7. And this is so important because while we're not seeing Chin counter the first attacks coming from Hades at the start of chapter 58, you can notice Alvatyr and Chin actually going on the defensive, but they're also skillfully avoiding getting touched by Hades also. In other words, you have to consider that Chin would have been overwhelmed here by Hades' speed if it wasn't for Alvatyr. She's one of the main reasons why Chin is able to have such a competitive fight against Hades. It's just only easier to notice in retrospect when you consider Alvatyr's special abilities as a Valkyrie. So if you remove her from the equation, I think Hades' speed would then have to be a problem. You would even have to wonder how it stands up to Zeus and Poseidon. But it doesn't end there, because if you go to chapter 61, after Hades covers himself in his own blood, we're then seeing his reaction speed. And like I said before, this is a different kind of speed. We're talking about how fast he can use his reflexes when he counters Chin's crossbow form. It's not exactly the same as how fast he is when he initiates the attack, like in chapter 58. So we're seeing him straight up counter the exact moment Chin's air bullets touch him by timing when it touches his blood first, but to do this instantaneously is just further proof of how busted his speed is. You might even argue that his reflex speed could possibly be just as fast as how he was when he attacked Chin first in chapter 58. Now I realize that's just an assumption, right? That's why I'm not arguing the speed of his reflexes to counter Chin's crossbow form might not be exactly how fast he was when he was moving in chapter 58, but I think at the very least you have to believe Hades' speed would have overpowered Chin if he had any other Valkyrie besides Alvatyr. Now Lu Bu's speed also has to be mentioned because if you go to chapter 2 when he countered Thor's hammer, he was able not only to dodge but also draw first blood. And Thor's hammer attack speed is so fast he was able to land his first strike against the giants without them even noticing what hit them. So you can see how Lu Bu's counter speed and reflexes could also be a challenge to Hades, because Lu Bu's able to dodge and counter without his Volan buffing his body like Chin's did. But even if Lu Bu could match Hades in speed like Chin did, this now brings me to mention Hades' durability, because when we see Lu Bu draw first blood against Thor, it doesn't really do anything to change the momentum in his favor. It's not like Thor staggers or slows down throughout the rest of the fight, so I can't really see him hurting Hades when he's proven to be such a tank. I mean, we could just start at the beginning when Hades was hit by Persephone Roa after Chin redirected it back at him with his armor form in chapter 56, and we can't forget Hades was looking to end this fight instantly, right? Like, there was no feeling out process. Hades came into round 7 to avenge Poseidon without wasting any time, so it's important you understand how much it means that he was able to survive his own killing blow after Chin redirects it. And it doesn't end there. We're then seeing Chin redirect his Persephone Titan in chapter 58, and even though Chin weakens the attack first before redirecting it, he then keeps going and send Hades flying backwards with his spear form. And I could really just keep going, guys. We then see Hades take Chin's halberd form directly on his left arm in chapter 60. It doesn't even affect him with how he uses his bident either. He just fights with his right arm instead for the rest of the fight. And then in chapter 61 we see him taking self-damage. Even Chin could feel how much it hurt him, so I think I've made my point, right? Hades is such a tank. He only starts to slow down until he finally uses Icor Eos for the first time, so I just don't see Lu Bu hurting him enough to leave any lasting damage. Even if Lu Bu could match him in speed and draw first blood, Hades' durability would only be his first problem, because then he'd have to try to match Hades in power. And if I'm giving Lu Bu the benefit of the doubt here and assuming he can last long enough to force Hades to use Desmos, it's by this point that I think we would then just have to compare Icor Eos versus Sky Eater. But it's hard to say for sure if Lu Bu would even come this far in the fight, right? I mean, maybe he could dodge and counter Persephone Roa and Persephone Calicoron, but because he isn't afraid of taking attacks head on either, I think he would probably just break his legs trying to tank Persephone Titan, because not even Chin with Alvatyr buffing his defenses was enough to stand up against it. The only way he countered it was by using armor and crossbow form in combination. Now, if Lu Bu's fighting with Alvatyr as his Valkyrie, then it could be a different situation, but I think this would be when Red Hair has to step in to replace his legs like in round 1. And for argument's sake, let's just assume Hades is compelled to use Icor Eos like Thor was to use his Awakened Thunder Hammer. Then I think this is it, guys. Hades would just have to take the win here. And this is because Lu Bu would consequently take so much more damage than Chin did, because his Valkyrie just doesn't buff his defenses like Alvatyr does. I mean, Chin had to face Icor Eos 3 times before he defeated Hades, and that's with him fighting with Alvatyr. I can't even imagine what Desmos would do to Lu Bu. So assuming Lu Bu could match his speed and doesn't die before Hades survives each of his attacks because of his durability, and could still somehow fight after surviving Persephone Titan, then I still think Hades would win by overpowering Sky Eater with Icor Eos. But that's gonna be the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you didn't know already, I'm doing another what if matchup just like this every Monday and Friday here on the channel, so of course if you're interested in more Record of Ragnarok, then make sure you subscribe. I'll be doing more here like always. But before I end the video, I want to give a very special thanks to the channel's Patreon patrons: Iron, Justin, Nix EXP, Paranormal Beluga, and Jedi Knight 104. I can't say it enough, guys. Thank you so much. And like always, if you're interested, you can sign up too and get into the monthly Q&A I'll be doing now here on the channel. I'll be posting the next one up sometime at the start of September, so from now until the end of August, feel free to consider joining. You'd also be helping me out a lot here in a massive way and get a special shout out like this in every single video. The link will be in the description below, or you could just search it yourself at patreon.com/Izanami. But other than that, guys, again, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. I would greatly appreciate it, and yeah, have a great day.